I think a lot of people's relationships fail because they ignore major blockages that they don't have a plan to get around in the early stages, right? Now, I'm gonna give you an example, a personal example, all right? I was in a relationship, right, with a lady who, shouts to her, amazing lady, right? This was some time ago, let's just say some time ago, right? And here's the thing, it was a crazy scenario, right? She was living in a whole different country, right? And it wasn't a thing where again she was planning on moving to the UK. It wasn't a thing where I was planning on moving to where she was living, right? And bear in mind, we're not talking no she's living in Europe or like we're talking she's living in America, right? And I'm living in the UK. So it was a pretty significant distance, right? Now, here's the thing. In that situation, that relationship was pretty short lived, right? It was pretty short lived, and the reason being is because I think sometimes you can get into relationships and you can be very much into your emotions and all of that kind of stuff, and you're thinking, "Wow, this person, I really like this person, etc." I think things can go amazingly, and then you kind of miss things. You kind of miss the the real obstacles that may prevent you from, I guess, having a successful relationship in the future. So what happened in this case is she actually had come to the UK. She had come to London to see me, and obviously spent some time with her, all that kind of stuff. And then pretty much after that, it was one of those ones where things just happened rapidly, right? It was just like, okay, you know what, everything's making sense. Like, let's get in a relationship type thing. It kind of just happened very much organically, and obviously I'd known her for some time or whatever. But anyways, that's besides the point. We were in a relationship now, but bear in mind she's now in America, right? And after what, 2 weeks or so, right? 2 weeks or so. And it was like we were spending like a lot of the day talking to each other, like probably for most of the day type thing. It was actually quite crazy. But it's like I realized I was just deep in it. I was like, hold on, wait, hold on. What are we actually gonna do? And we were talking. I was like, what's the actual plan? Right? Like, are you planning to move to the UK? Am I planning to move over there? No, right? Is she planning to move over here? Complicated. That it's like one of them ones where she would have liked to, but she couldn't. Right? I'll say that. Yeah. So, and we're talking like just in general in the future, like it wouldn't have made sense for her to be able to do that. So seeing that, it's like there's a clear obstacle here. Doesn't matter how we're feeling about each other. Doesn't matter how we we want to be together and all that kind of stuff at the time. Doesn't matter, because ultimately, if there's a clear blockage, again, there's a difference between there being a barrier, a hurdle to overcome, and a clear blockage that there's no plan to overcome. This is my personal opinion. You may think differently. You may think in this situation, no, you should just like keep going. Like, for example, what she was saying is she's like, look, like, I don't know, we'll figure it out, blah blah blah. Isn't love enough? I'm like, nah, love isn't enough. Love isn't enough. It has to actually make sense as well. There has to be some kind of at least plan or some kind of idea of how it will actually work going forwards. Because her thing was, we once we get married and stuff, we can figure it out. No, what the heck? Can't get married and then figure these kinds of things out, right? You can't get married and then figure these kinds of things out. You gotta have some kind of plan before that. When you're talking about what getting married and we're in completely different countries and stuff like that, it doesn't really make sense, right? Now, your situation probably isn't going to be as crazy as that, right? I can acknowledge that was a crazy scenario, right? I can acknowledge that. But again, after 2 weeks, I woke up. It made sense. I was like, okay, cool. Hold on, now there's a clear obstacle here, and we got to wrap this up, right? Um, so I made this song. I actually made this song about her. Right? I'm gonna link the song. I'm gonna link it in the description. It's called 34 Hours. Right? It's currently out on all streaming platforms. You can go ahead and check that out. Spotify, YouTube, wherever it is. Right? And in this song, you're gonna hear it's a romance song, but it's a love song, but it's also a breakup song. But it's a wholesome based breakup song. And I think sometimes things like this, like, it's important to recognize again when a situation just isn't going to make sense. And it's important to get out of that situation ASAP early enough, because if not, what would have happened down the line? I mean, that's a whole other story for a whole other day, but we'll probably come to that another time, right? But all I can say is, yeah, everything worked out for the best, right? And a lot of the times, again, in these situations, if you ignore these real obstacles, I think a lot of people, again, they have these relationships and there's massive real blockages, right? And they don't have, again, if it's completely different if there's a plan. It's like, okay, yeah, I'm studying right now. After I finish studying, I'm planning to come over there, So for the first year, couple years, whatever, this is how we're gonna do it. Me personally, I think that's a viable solution. If the love is really there and if it really feels like this person is the one, right, then it can make sense, right? However, again, if there's no plan, it's like, well, I don't know what we're gonna do, but like we'll figure it out at some point, I guess. And it's just like it doesn't make sense as to how we're gonna do it. I don't know, man. I don't know. Again, something like that, you kind of got to be like living together at some point, right? So again, for you, it might be something different. It might be that you have completely different religions. That's a more common example that I see in real life. Again, most people don't seem crazy, right? But I'm talking people, like, for example, I remember one of my people some time ago, she was talking about how, like, she's heavily Christian, right? And she was in a relationship with someone that was Muslim, right? Like, heavily Muslim. And I was like, that's not, I don't think I actually said it to her at the time. I remember speaking to her about it, like, later down the line and stuff. But I think in that moment, no, I think I did say it to her. I think I did. Because I think there was a different situation where there was, like, a clear obstacle and I didn't say something. And I was like, are you sure? Trying to think. I don't remember. But anyways, long story short, there was one situation where I didn't say something and she's like, oh, you should have said. Because after we were speaking, I was like, yeah, I can't lie, I was thinking that. She's like, oh, you should have said. So the next time I actually said it to her, but then she didn't take it well, type shit. She was like, oh, she's just being hella defensive. But it is what it is. It didn't end up working out well. But anyways, look, she's Christian. She's in a relationship with someone that's a Muslim, right? And it doesn't, bear in mind, like, it's not to say that can't work ever, right? But in this particular situation, it wasn't going to make sense. Like, I believe if someone is heavily Christian and someone else is heavily Muslim, the odds of that relationship being successful is drastically low, right? Because you're on two completely different religious beliefs. And if you're locked in on your religion and you're both locked in on your religion, like, that's not going to work. Right? Again, it can. I believe anything is possible, but the odds are unlikely. And again, there's certain situations, like, you have to know the individual situation, right? So you could be in an individual situation and you could, I don't know, maybe for whatever reason, you just have that mutual respect and understanding of each other, to where you know that even though you're on different religions, you have a clear plan around it, cool. But if you don't have a clear plan, it's like, oh, I don't know what kind of marriage we're going to do. I don't know how we're going to raise our children. I don't know, like, we'll just figure it out. No. Don't be bringing children into this world and figuring that shit out later. Like, figure that shit out now, for real. So yeah, stuff like that, whether it's completely different religions, whether it's, what else could it be? I mean, it's mostly going to be down to values, but obviously location could be a thing. If you're in a situation like that, I wouldn't really recommend not having a plan around that. Again, I feel like if you have a plan, it's different. But yeah, just be careful with these things. Be careful with these things and know when it's time to actually get out. Know when it's time to get out of the relationship and try to see that earlier on so you don't cause pain to yourself and to the other person. Like, in that situation, I was like, you know what, the further down we go in this, the harder it's going to be when we actually do eventually break up. And realistically, that's how I foresee it. And in relationships, a lot of the times, that's how I think. I just think long term, is this making sense long term? Is this actually going to work? And if it's not, then it's like, okay, we need to, like, work on figuring this out. Or if it's not something that we can figure it out, then we need to, like, not really continue type thing as early as possible. Like, I did ideally identify that ASAP, right? Immediately ASAP, right? But yeah, anyways, that's the video. Again, go check out the song 34 Hours. I just dropped it actually a few days ago. So yeah, check that out. Outside of that, looks like I've got a work call coming through. So let me go ahead and answer on a Saturday. Let's go, we locked in.